Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Burnout Ends Here, my new weekly live. It's been a very long time since I have done a live with you, but we are back and I'm starting so every Thursday, 2 p.m. across LinkedIn and YouTube. We're going to be here for Burnout Ends Here. I am Kelly Swingler, the burnoutologist and founder of the Burnout Academy, where in the Burnout Academy, we help coaches and leaders to master burnout awareness to better serve their clients and teams. Let me make sure I have got the comments turned on for you all. Hello. Today's session is for every coach, leader, even coach supervisor, right? Coaches, leaders, managers, coach supervisors who have felt that when working with a client who is nearly at burnout, but they're finding that maybe the tools that they're using are just not helping, right? There's something that is not working for a particular client. The tools that you're using are not having the regular impact, and you are then becoming frustrated or worried or thinking that all of a sudden you've just become a really, really terrible coach, or you are unable to be moving clients through. So we're going to talk all about that this afternoon and say why that's happening. So in this live, we're going to talk about why that happens. I'm going to talk about how burnout changes how people show up, right? It changes how people show up to coaching. Burnout can impact decision making. It can impact confidence. It can impact our self-esteem. So all of those things end up being impacted. Put my teeth in. And so today I want to talk to you about what you as coaches and or leaders can be doing if you feel that you are recognizing those signs of burnout in your clients. If you are joining me live, hello, welcome, and drop a coach or leader, drop the word coach or leader in the chat if this sounds like something that you have experienced or you are currently experiencing, right? You are an amazing coach. You do great stuff for your clients, but you are recognizing that maybe just lately, or maybe just with kind of a handful of clients, your usual expertise, your usual skills and knowledge and experience and all of those amazing tools that you have in your toolkit are just not working. So we're gonna go through all of those today. Let's have a look at where we are. I'm just conscious I want to keeping an eye on the comments. I know sometimes LinkedIn continues to hide them. So if you are there, give me another hello. Hopefully they will start to come through, and then we can start responding. So interestingly, actually, I've just come off a call with one of the Burnout Academy alumni. She had a couple of questions around her submission, and she was, I'm sure, I won't mention her name, but we were just having a conversation about kind of burnout awareness as a whole, really, what that looks like, and whether we should be saying to people when we spot some of these signs or symptoms of burnout, whether we should be saying to people, hey, I think you're at burnout, this is where we're going. Hey, Pauline. Pauline is another one of the fabulous Burnout Academy alumni. So, hey, Pauline, lovely to see you here. And Pauline says, again, she's upskilling on more techniques to support her clients. Pauline is doing that brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. So great to have you here, Pauline. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Pauline, if you've got questions, feel free to post them in the chat and I will answer those for you. So I've just been having this conversation with another one of the Burnout Academy alumni, as I said, talking about her submission. And she was basically like, she doesn't want to, nor is she working explicitly as a burnout awareness coach. And that was never really what I designed the 2-day burnout awareness training for. What I wanted to be able to do, really, and really why I created the Burnout Academy. Don't worry, this isn't a sales pitch to say that you should be joining the academy. But if some of this resonates, then by all means, I would love to see you there. But initially, the reason that I created the Burnout Academy, I've now been kind of coaching people in and around the burnout space for over a decade. I had qualified and trained as an executive coach. I'd done lots of kind of solution focused coaching skills and qualifications and training. And I had also, after my first burnout, I'd started to do a number of other different qualifications. I did one in hypnotherapy, I did one in psychotherapy. I started to kind of look at neuroscience. My exec coaching qualification, the other kind of solution focused coaching areas that I had looked at, plus the hypnotherapy, which was solution focused, and the psychotherapy, which was solution focused, was really all about moving clients forward, right? Everything was about moving clients forward. The more that I was sharing my own burnout story and my own burnout experience, the more really I was beginning to attract more and more clients who were experiencing the same thing, right? Who were resonating with my story, who were finding themselves, actually, yes, that's me. Some of them had been to doctors and been diagnosed with burnout. Some of them were off with chronic workplace stress. And I was getting more and more of these clients. Some of them were having either kind of counselling or therapy in addition. Some of them had already had that and wanted to be able to move forwards. And really, with all of my coaching clients, I'd been able to move all of my clients forward pretty quickly. But I was finding with those that were in this high stress state or in this state of burnout, we would be repeating some of the same things over again. We'd talk about one thing in one session, we'd agree on the action plan, the client would have the actions that they were going to go for. We might be talking about goals, we might be talking about confidence. Maybe it was conversations that they needed to be having with people. So all of it was about getting them to move forwards. We then have our next session, and we might be talking about the same issues. And there's part of me that's did we not deal with this last month? And so we talk about stuff. But what I was realizing was that these clients that I was working with, the more clients that I was working with that were in this high stress state and or on the brink of burnout, decision making was proving to be really, really difficult. Agreeing something in a session was one thing, but then actually almost like the fear response that was happening outside of the session, right? As they went to then implement the actions and create the changes, they would then end up finding themselves just like really, really frozen, right? They'd find themselves not being able to move forwards, not being able to commit to the action that we had done, or it was taking them a really, really long time. And then when they had recognized that some of these things were causing issues for them, again, what they were bringing to their coaching was more of these feelings of failure, feeling like they were failing, feeling like they weren't being successful, feeling like they were just no good anymore, right? These were people that up until this point of burnout or chronic stress had been high performing, high achievers. They were quick decision makers. Whilst they might have had some confidence wobbles from time to time, 99% of the time, right, they were really able and willing and just, they were moving forwards, right? They were go-getters, they were successful, they were able to do it. And we were just finding more of this stuff was happening. So it was from there really that I then started to want to learn more. I really went down this kind of rabbit hole with neuroscience. I wanted to understand what was impacting our brain. And that then took me on a journey of understanding things like the central nervous system. And I just began to be learning more and more and more about the body and the brain and the nervous system and how burnout can impact our brains in the same way as trauma. Understanding how it can impact our decision-making abilities, understanding that when we are in a high stress state, we move out of the intellectual part of our brain into the primitive part of the brain. And the intellectual brain really is where we can be creative and innovative. It's where we are solution focused. It's where we can move forwards really quickly, right? We're able to make decisions. We might be able to tune into that gut feel a bit more, right? So our intuition is on point, but we get stuff done, right? We're creative, problem solving, solution focused, moving forwards in that way. But as our stress levels rise, as our stress levels go up, we come down into the primitive part of our brain. And in that primitive part of our brain, we can't innovate, right? We keep repeating the same old patterns and behaviors. We end up in these just like repeating the same things over and over again. What is it? That kind of what is it like? Is it the first sign of insanity, first sign of madness or something, right? Keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what happens when we're in this high stress state and we move into the primitive part of our brain. So of course I'm coaching with all of these techniques that I've been taught, right? All of these kind of solution focused models. I'm, setting goals with clients. We're working on all of this stuff to get them moving forwards. I'm not, although I have trained in many therapies, I don't work as a therapist. I don't work as a counselor. I'm very much a coach, and now training coaches in burnout awareness and all of this stuff. But, I was a coach, and I was just seeing more and more of my clients that were almost like just repeating these cycles over and over again. So of course I went into, there's something wrong with me, right? Clearly I'm not as good a coach as I thought I was. Whilst I was having all of this success with previous clients, there's clearly something wrong with me now. There's something wrong with my coaching. There's something wrong with my techniques. There's something wrong. What am I not doing? And I started to talk these things through with my coaching supervisor, and we were then talking about different coaching techniques and different questions that I could ask. And some of you may be very familiar with this one, right? But I would be kind of sat with with some of these clients and asking them these questions. They go, oh, I don't know. And some of you will be familiar very well with this question, right? But what would it be if you did know, right? How many of you have used that in coaching before, right? What would it be if you did know, right? What would it be if you did know the answer? What would it be if you could kind of pinpoint that thing? And it was almost like rabbit in the headlights with these clients, because they're like, I just don't know. And of course, then from a coaching perspective, and sometimes I was in like step out of coaching, and I was finding myself, maybe I was going into a bit more of a consulting role, or a bit more of an advisory role, or a bit more of a mentoring role, trying to move these people forwards. When I understood the neuroscience of why they were frozen, when I understood the impact that burnout and stress were having on them, I understood literally why they could not think their way into any of these solutions. It wasn't just that they were saying, I don't know, because they weren't trying. They just could not access the part of their brain that was allowing them to come up with the solutions and to come up with the answers and to commit to doing, to taking things forwards. So I realized actually I needed to be changing a lot of my techniques, and again, Pauline's in the chat there. But for some people, it is, they very much go into this kind of fight or flight mode. I'll cover this a lot in the Burnout Academy for people. We know we want to be able to move our clients forward, and yet when they are in this mode, in this high stress mode, they just can't. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the Burnout Academy is how to get clients to feel their way into almost like a point of safety, right? But we need to kind of like park the brain for a few minutes, right? We kind of need to put the brain to one side and really get people back into their bodies. Because when it's high stress, when it's burnout, when they're on the brink of burnout, what we see from that perspective is, as I said, the whole body, right? The brain and the body are sending signals that there is this stress state, right? Almost they're kind of, primed and ready to run, right? So everything neurologically, physiologically is all signaling ready for, okay, where is the imminent danger so that we can go and run? And of course, when you're in that state, all you're doing is like looking for the next part of danger, right? What's happening? What's danger on the horizon? How are we going to move this forwards? We're not thinking, we just need to take a break and slow down. So if as coaches, as leaders, if we can allow our people, allow our clients some of the space to really know what it feels like again to be safe, right? What would it feel like if you just stopped and took a breath? What would it feel like if you weren't in this high stress mode, right? What would it feel like to be in your body, calming your body, just being in that state? So again, in the Burnout Academy, we talk, lots of different breathing techniques. There's lots of different coaching techniques that I take through with people. Some of you may be very familiar and may have already trained in breath work or breathing techniques. Some of you may be aware of things like somatics. But really, whether we're kind of resetting, almost like resetting the nervous system. I saw a comment about nutrition, I think, somewhere in the comments. I'll come to those comments in a moment. But, whether we are resetting the nervous system through food, through hydration, through rest, through breathing, through somatics, We really need to allow our clients that space to reset, right? To slow down, to recharge. And when they begin to feel safe again in their bodies, again, different signals are going to the brain and vice versa. The brain is then sending very different signals to the body. But then we can start to move forward with goal setting. Then we can start to move forwards with confidence. Then we can start to talk about action planning and where you want to be in 3 or 6 or 9 months' time. Then we can talk about how we start to move all of those things forward. But if you've gone straight into a coaching relationship with a client that is experiencing high stress, maybe they've been off work with burnout, maybe they don't know they're at burnout, maybe they've come to you because of low confidence, maybe they've come because they've started to experience some challenges in their relationships at work, maybe they're struggling to delegate, maybe their time management has just gone completely out of the window, maybe they're beginning to feel overwhelmed. So all of these kind of initial signs that could be signals that say, okay, maybe, we're on the brink of burnout. If we go straight into goal setting or straight into what do you want from this? Where do you want to be 3 months from now? Where do you want to be 6 months from now? Again, it's kind of like rabbit in the headlights, right? I don't know. And if we go straight into that, and again, our clients are really relying on us to be the experts in this phase. If we go straight into that without really understanding any of the signs of stress or chronic stress or burnout, we're not going to be moving our clients forward in the right way. And potentially, as I said, with some of those clients that I was coaching earlier, before I'd kind of begun to learn all of this stuff, we could potentially be taking them backwards because they then start, well, clearly I'm failing, right? Because Kelly's expecting me to be moving forwards and I'm not moving forwards and I can't answer any of the questions. I don't really understand what she's asking me. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know where I want to be 3 months from now. If all of that in a talk then happens, then actually our clients start to regress backwards. Maybe they begin to withdraw from the coaching. Maybe it's months before they have a session. Maybe they start cancelling all of the time because they're just feeling overwhelmed. They're not moving forwards because for us as coaches, we're not understanding enough of the burning flags, right? Red flags, the burnout signs or symptoms that we maybe need to be starting the coaching relationship in a very, very different way. We need to be aware that for our clients, if there is high stress, chronic stress or burnout, our clients are very, very unlikely to be able to think their way out of that space until we have changed some of our techniques, we've changed some of our questioning, we've created a space of safety, we've created a space where actually we want to kind of, as I said, kind of detach the brain almost, right? We want to get people feeling into their bodies. And again, in the Burnout Academy, Pauline will know there's a technique that I take everybody through that is about getting us to feel, right? Where is there tension in the body? Where does this feel right? What decision might feel right for me to go into, rather than kind of relying on the brain to say what is the right thought process to be able to move us forward. So there's all of these things that we need to go. Okay, let's come to some of the comments that we have got here. What's Pauline saying? Pauline says, I have a client going around the hamster wheel saying the same things. No clear thinking and about to fall off the 0 to 10 rating scale. We're working through the techniques that I learned on the Burnout Academy 2-day program. Understanding stress through the bucket is really helping. However, when does progress for those impacted start to show up? Really, really great question, Pauline. What have you said here? So if you can, again, I don't want anybody, particularly not if we're talking about active clients that we're working with, no names, no organizations or anything. I know you wouldn't do that anyway, but let's be really specific about that. Pauline, give me a little bit more information if you can. So maybe how long have you been working with the client? So maybe kind of how many months, how many sessions, and where you said they're about to kind of fall off the 0 to 10 scale. If they were on that scale, are they saying they're at that 10? Are they saying they're at the 9? Just kind of, Pauline, if you can give me a bit more information, let's see if we can answer this for you. So where on the scale? How many sessions have you had with them? Let me know that and then we'll get that answered for you. Okay, then. So on to the next comment then. So Jen, sounds like some of my nutrition coaching clients who are high-performing professionals and mums, but can't seem to make the simplest changes needed. Yeah, Jen, that was likely to be exactly the same thing. Again, I don't know kind of when you say mums, whether they're kind of new mums or whatever that kind of looks like for them. But yeah, if they high performance, and there is this thing, right? And again, this was a really big eye opener for me, because I would still have said I was a high performing, right? High performing, high achiever, overachieving, perfectionist, and everything had to be where it was, right? I got my seat at the table at 30 because of the way in which I was working. And I would still to this day say, well, I was the high performer. There is definitely, absolutely 100% a difference between thinking we are high performing and actual sustainable high performance. So if we look at it from like an athlete's perspective, athletes and many people in business, right, particularly those in very senior levels, love a sporting analogy, right? They love giving us a sporting analogy about what top performing athletes do to kind of, maintain that peak performance. Most athletes only really have a very kind of short career in the first place, right? And in that short career, yes, they're pushing themselves past their limits, right? Past probably where the majority of us would do. But they do have amazing teams around them. They will have nutritionists. They'll have people that are looking at their fitness levels, their muscle mass, their movement, their sleep, their rest, their food, hydration, movement, rest time, all of those different things. What a lot of us tend to do, and Jen, I would imagine that this is potentially quite kind of relevant with your clients in particular. If we've got high performing people at work, and then you've got the parenthood and everything that's going on outside of work, where are things like rest happening? You're probably on, right, 24/7. Sleep is probably being impacted. So again, if you're on 24/7, if you're always kind of in that on mode, always got to be doing the next thing, and maybe also, and again, I know I had this when my sons were young. I also had it into their teens. I've got twin sons. They're 24 now. But I know for me, right, there was this huge, when I wasn't working, I was feeling guilty for being a mum and not working. And when I was working, I was feeling guilty for not being a mum and working. And so again, all of that guilt, all of that stress, all of that need to keep feeling like you've got to perform, all of that need to keep feeling like you've got to keep pushing people forwards. The higher that stress and the longer that stress goes on for, the more you will be in the primitive brain, the less likely you will be to be creative and innovate. And I would imagine, again, Jen, if you are, what did you say, they're nutrition coaching, right? People will become, because they know that they need to improve something, right? They're paying you good money, right? I want to improve my nutrition. Maybe I want to increase energy. Maybe I want more clarity. Maybe I want to be sleeping better. Maybe I want to be losing some weight, whatever those things look like. But ultimately, again, yeah, if they're unable to make the changes, they're in that primitive part of their brain. They'll just be repeating the same things, the same patterns over again. And again, Pauline will be familiar with it. So I'm just looking to see if I've got pen and paper that I could do with anybody. Whenever we're trying to make change for our clients, right, can I talk about this ski slope analogy? So if we say that we have a ski slope. Okay, this is a ski slope, everybody, but we have this ski slope. And this path are all of the decisions that we make on a regular basis. So we'll stick with Jen and her nutrition clients for now. So these are the decisions that we make on this ski slope, right, that says, this is how I'm going to eat. So maybe I'm skipping meals, maybe I'm reaching for quick fixes, whatever the reason that I'm coming to you in the first place. So these are the decisions that I've been making, and maybe for a really, really long period of time. Maybe it's been a few months and I just want to get back on track. Maybe it's been years. Maybe it's been decades, right? So these are the patterns that I've been making on a really, really long time. What we tend to do is we think, because we've changed it once, that actually this is now going to be the path that we walk really easily. And that's not the case. Again, if we then add chronic stress into this, high stress into this, burnout into this, and we stay in the primitive path of our brain, this one path, it's going to snow tonight, and this path is going to vanish. I'm going to continue to go back down the path that I've been doing for a really, really long time. Again, I can't innovate. I can't think I need to take a new path. So I will continue to do this. Even though I know there's a different path available to me, I'm going to keep walking down this path because this is the safe one. This is the one that I know. I don't need to be creative. I can just keep on going. And so what we need to be doing is They need to keep repeating over and over and over and over again, right? This is where the consistency, the accountability, the change comes in. We've got to keep walking this new path down this slope. And then as it snows, this one starts to get snowed over. So this one becomes the one that we don't automatically walk anymore. It might be the one that we default to, again, if we find ourselves in a key point of stress, but actually this one then becomes the new norm. And sometimes, again, if we're working with high stress, if we're working with burnout, if we're working with chronic stress, that momentum, like the amount of times that we need to keep repeating that new behavior literally needs to be consistent, right? Maybe it's 3 times a day, 4 times a day, 5 times a day. Maybe we need to keep repeating mantras or words or something to keep us on track with that. But that can be kind of where we go with that one. So Jen, I hope that resonates there. I have then, what's our next question here? Have you seen any synergies in the symptoms of burnout versus bore out? Yes. So again, for those of you that aren't familiar, if you're not familiar with the kind of term burnout, there's actually 3 different types of burnout. One is what we call frenetic burnout, and that frenetic burnout really is that kind of high stress, always going, got to keep achieving, always on, and of course that can cause one kind of level of stress. There is then a second type of burnout, which is very much referred to as kind of bore out. You'll see it referred to as bore out, definitely on a lot of social feeds, particularly if you are on Instagram. But it's more commonly in the kind of psychology world, that's referred to more as what we call under challenged burnout. And basically that is, if you're just, for example, if you've got a really monotonous job, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, if you are not being stretched or challenged, if you don't have enough stress, if you don't have enough variety, that can then lead to this under challenged burnout or this bore out. And so, yeah, it can be the same. Now, some of the kind of health implications are not necessarily the same between this burnout and this bore out, because one is more literally kind of boredom, not enough stress to keep us going, but actually that then could be more likely to lead to things like depression. It could lead to things more like anxiety. It could, if you're sedentary all the time, of course, that can have an impact on, on our physiology. That can have an impact on our cardiovascular health, all of those sorts of things. So if you were sat at a job looking at a screen all day, no challenge any of that, right? The sedentary lifestyle is not going to be any good for you, in the same way as too much stress, too much exercise, too much movement could be the same. So there are some similarities, yes. But if we look at frenetic burnout, that tends to be really, really high stress. Bore out is then not enough stress, not enough to keep us motivated. And then there is a third type of burnout, which again, in the kind of psychology world would mostly be referred to, as worn out burnout. There was a research study done a few years ago now. I can't remember how many, 2 or 3. If we get to that point, does anybody else get to that point where you're like, I don't know if it was last year or 5 years ago? That's kind of where I'm at now. I'm like, well, it was only last year. It's like, no, it wasn't. It was like 7 years ago. But there was a research study done by an organisation called Softer Success. You'll find them here on LinkedIn, and King's College London. And this worn out burnout, the studies and research that came from that was basically to say that it's also can be called moral injury. Some of you may have seen some of the articles or some of the research around that, but this worn out burnout or what we see as this moral injury is then if we're doing work, we're living in a way that is not aligned to our values. So we can have values misalignment, which is worn out burnout and or moral injury. We have the under challenged burnout or bore out, not enough stress, too much monotony. And then we can have this frenetic burnout, which is high stress, which can then kind of push us into this primitive brain. So I hope that answers that question. Whoever asked that question, I can't see your name come up. It just says LinkedIn user, but I hope that's answered that for you. Where else are we? Pauline says Nancy Klein theory, the Nancy Klein time to think. Yes, I love that. And more time to think, which I also love. Jen says stress management with food is underestimated for sure. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And to get, and I can, you know, from my perspective, Jen, again, with, you know, my first burnout made me really seriously. I developed two really serious physical health conditions. My second burnout that nearly killed me, I then developed a third chronic health condition. One I live with three chronic health conditions. All of those, or definitely the two physical, but all of them can really impact my body, my digestion, my energy levels. I have to be really, really careful with the foods that I'm eating. You know, I can go like full on anxiety, full on stress. You know, if I need to go to an event, is the food going to be safe? Is there going to be a bathroom nearby? What can I eat? What's a safe food? What's not a safe food? Do I need to be prepping stuff in advance? Will I have like safe, you know, even if I ask for safe foods, will it be served? Will I have to ask somebody? Do I need to look like an idiot? All of like, and it's all very real. And of course, then some of that more stress can cause me more issues even before I've stepped out the door. Right. So really kind of thinking about, and then I can get myself to the point I can't, like, sometimes like I can't, if I have a flare up with any of these, the stress and panic that it can take me sometimes to even think about cooking a meal is just too much. Right. And then sometimes again, I just want the safe foods to be able to take it. So it's there, it's real, and it happens. Jen says, okay, so this is going back to the mums again. So specifically young school age kids. So so expected to be fully back in career, fit again, and at the school gates. I mean, that in itself is enough, right? And then you've got book days and sports days. And one of my nieces, trying to think how old she is now, 5. I think, I don't know, I can't tell you how many events there have been just over the last month, right? She's had World Book Day. She had something like Crazy Hair Day. She's had a pajama day. She's had all sorts of stuff. My sister-in-law and my brother both work full-time. They're both in full-time jobs. You know, they both do all of this stuff. And then you've got to remember like 5 or 6 different things that your child should be wearing or shouldn't be wearing, or they need crazy hair or not crazy hair, or well, but like that in itself is kind of enough to have to deal with, right? And then if we've got nutrition and stress and well-being and right, biggest thing with self-care, how we speak to ourselves, huge one. Pauline says you've answered my question. You're very welcome, Pauline. Thank you. Okay, worked with his team and here now for over a year. Okay, says he's at a 9, has had 4 sessions over a period of 5 months. He's keen to meet weekly. Yeah, okay, which we've implemented. The safe space is imperative for him. Absolutely. Working long hours, but we've just managed to put in place non-negotiables. Amazing, Pauline. Superstar. That'll be helping the both of you. Think we've a long way to go. We're not setting goals. We talk about the balance of the two. So currently, so things that he needs to work on. So yeah, that's amazing. And I think I said this in the academy as well, Pauline. You know, sometimes, I mean, if you kind of, you know, if you go to my website, you'll say I coach people on a monthly basis, and so we have a really kind of deep dive initial session, and then typically it's monthly. But again, if it's somebody really high burnout, I might be meeting with them weekly. I might be meeting with them fortnightly. It might be monthly. Every single thing is dependent on the individual. And this again might help, Pauline. What we think, and particularly for us as coaches, right? Again, what we think progress looks like, our clients can sometimes think very, very differently. When it comes to burnout, just the fact that you've set a non-negotiable is huge progress. The fact that the client has said, I would like to meet weekly because I want to continue to make progress, is huge progress, right? That's a decision, that's momentum, that's non-negotiables, that's some changes that they're implementing, right? They might feel small, but they will be making a huge difference. And again, it's important, we definitely touched on this in the academy, right? But it is about these smaller, consistent actions. The more consistent it can be, the more deep-rooted the change, right? Coming back to our ski slope, that new path is all about that consistency. So if you're helping with all of that, you will be making massive progress for that client in ways that maybe none of you realize at the moment, but it will be absolutely amazing. So yeah, just kind of keep that change going, and then we'll go from there. And the link to you, I said it's Elaine. Hello, Elaine. Lovely to have you here as well. Okay, any more questions? I hope that's been useful for you. I hope answering some of that has helped. But yeah, basically what we need to be doing is finding ways, techniques, tools, questions, breathing exercises, many different ways to really be allowing our clients to just settle. As coaches, our role is not to be, we're not in therapy mode, we're not in counselling mode, we're not medical professionals. We do not, again, I mean, it's really, really clear to everybody in the Burnout Academy, we are not there to diagnose. Our role is coaches. The contracting part of that coaching relationship is key. I'm really clear with all of my clients. I am no longer, if you like, a pure coach, because depending on the individual, sometimes we might be doing some movement, sometimes we're coaching, sometimes we're breathing, sometimes I'm advising, sometimes I am using a few more therapy tools in a therapeutic way, not therapy, but maybe some of those tools, because again, I'm qualified in some of those things. So being able to create some of those changes, make some of those moves, and then we start to go into that coaching relationship. But for all of us, every single one of us, we need to understand what our role is, and we need to be sticking to that remit. Again, I mentioned at the very start of this session, I've just come off the phone with another one of the Burnout Academy alumni, and they were talking about, two clients that they've referred on to a GP and said, actually, I think you need some additional support first, and then we can pick up the coaching later. Absolutely. Right. I have had just a couple of clients in the more than a decade that I've been doing this, but I've had to say, I believe that you need to go and get some, speak to a GP, there's medical intervention before we can do anything. I've spoken to other clients and said, potentially some therapy would be really beneficial for you, potentially a different kind of modality, potentially some movement would be really good for you, potentially, signposting them to different things. We need to be, coaching still remains, right, really, really unregulated. And all of us need to understand what our remit is, right? If you don't have one, absolutely get a code of conduct. Make sure that contracting is really, really clear with all of the clients that you're working with, and be sure to refer. But for today, and with our session, right, the truth about burnout coaching, right, what we need to know is that decision-making can be really, really difficult for our clients. Moving them forward can be really, really difficult. Goal setting can be really difficult. We need to understand these small levels of consistency, but ideally we need to be finding ways to reset some of this nervous system to keep our clients moving forwards. Okay. If there are no other questions, then maybe we'll leave it there, right? But I suppose just to maybe kind of, quickly sum up like today's session, right? Burnout doesn't just impact your clients. Right, it impacts how you show up as a coach, how you show up as a leader, and as I said, hopefully today's conversation is just the start for you. I said I've mentioned the Burnout Academy. This isn't a kind of sales pitch, but inside the academy, we do go really deep into how you can recognise and adapt when burnout is present, whether you are a pure burnout coach or not, or whether you are working with clients and burnout is becoming much more prevalent. You want to know what you should be doing more, right? So I believe it's absolutely important that all of us have that awareness so that we can confidently support clients who might otherwise just stay stuck. So if you are curious about the Burnout Academy, I will drop the link in the comments in a moment. So I'll drop it there, or you can feel free to message me if you have any questions. But I suppose before we leave, I like everything. I like to kind of know what your takeaways are. So before we leave, if you are still with me, let me know maybe what is maybe one shift that you'll make as a result of this kind of very quick, what have we been doing, like almost 40 minutes, right? Maybe what's one shift that you might make as a result of something that you've seen or heard in today's session, or maybe what's one takeaway. So if you are still there with me, drop in the comments maybe one shift that you'll make as a result of today's session, or maybe your biggest takeaway. Pop that in the comments for me. As I said, I will drop the Burnout Academy link below. Pauline, bless you. Thank you. Best investment in training I've ever made. Thank you very much. I just love that. Thank you. We've got to make the difference, right? When we know better, we do better. I know I say this all the time, but it's really, really true. But when we know better, we do better. We can be doing better for our clients. We become better coaches. We can move people forwards in the right way. So thank you very much for joining. I will be back again next Thursday for our next live. Next Thursday, 2 a.m. So these are going to be regular ones again now. So my weekly lives will be Burnout Ends here, 2 p.m. every Thursday, live on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you're not already giving me a follow, give me a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, give me a subscribe. And I will be back with you next week. Thank you very, very much for watching, everybody. I will pop that link for you in the comments, and hopefully I will see you again next week. I will say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure sharing this space with you all, and hopefully I'll see you all again next time. So take care for now, everybody. Bye, bye, bye.